My work really focuses on youth in this world because I think it's very easy to say that Black Cowboys are a thing of the past or this is something that's behind us. I think it challenges people to say, no, this is very now. And the youth of this country are taking up the reins and driving this culture forward and are really relevant. But I really do believe that joy is an act of rebellion. And it's the most powerful thing that you can do to say to those that want to control us or those that want to destroy our spirits or destroy our environment. No, we're going to come together as a community and we're going to absolutely celebrate something that we're collectively excited about. And I view the rodeo as the resistance in this country, 100%.
Welcome to Episode 59, the Photo Country Podcast, where we're about to embark on a fascinating journey into a rarely told story of American culture. We are thrilled to welcome photographer Ivan McClellan, whose groundbreaking work has been instrumental in bringing the rich heritage and vibrant culture of Black Cowboys into focus. Through his lens and personal journey, Ivan has not only captured stunning images, but has helped reshape our understanding of this overlooked chapter in American history. Join us as host Rajeev explores Ivan's remarkable path from growing up in Kansas to becoming one of the most influential voices documenting Black cowboy culture through photography. Get ready for an eye-opening conversation that challenges stereotypes and celebrates a powerful legacy that continues to thrive today.
Hello, Ivan. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I was reading some research for this interview, and you grew up in Kansas?
Yeah. I grew up in Kansas, which is right in the middle of the country. I grew up on land in the middle of the city, if that makes sense. So we had about 5 acres in the back of our house, and we would do country stuff. We'd climb trees, hit wasp nests with sticks, go running. We would catch fireflies. We would build forts and all kinds of stuff behind the house. But in the front of the house, it was more urban. It was police and fighting dogs and gang members. And so I had this dual life of being a country kid and being a city kid at the exact same time.
Right. And did you have any interaction with this subculture of Black Cowboys at that point?
It was around me, but I really didn't pay it any attention. We would go to a rodeo in Kansas City every year called the American Royal. And you would go there and you wouldn't see any Black folks at all. Everybody there was white. I loved Westerns. I loved watching movies like Tombstone was my favorite movie growing up with Val Kilmer, and there's not a single Black person in that entire film. But just down the street from me was Mr. Wills, who was Black. I went to school with his daughter, Courtney, and he raised cows. He had like a herd of 15 cows. I had never considered him to be a cowboy because he was Black. And based on what I had seen in the films and seen at the rodeo, that just wasn't something that Black folks did. So we just thought Mr. Wills was kind of weird. We were like, why's he got all these cows in the middle of the city? And there was a ranch that we would go to some Sundays after church called Benjamin Ranch, and it was Black-owned horse ranch. We would go there in our church clothes and ride ponies. And again, I never really thought of the folks that work there as cowboys. I just thought these are some Black folks that work with horses. So just having that narrative shift as an adult was a big change for me.
I know during slavery or after slavery, almost 1 in 4 cowboys were...
Yeah, Black cowboys were really influential in the early West. Like the West, the Wild West that you see in movies and that you read about in books only lasted a few decades. It was a very short period. It was after slavery. Folks were wrangling cattle around because in Texas, there were large herds of cattle and they would just sort of go wherever they wanted. And so you would have to go and find your cattle and bring them back to be sold, or you would go back to herd all of your cattle to the city to sell them live because there weren't refrigerated trains yet. As soon as barbed wire was invented, cowboying kind of ended. There were still cattle drives that took cattle up north, but then refrigerated trains ended that. Barbed wire allowed you to keep your cattle in one place, and the cowboy really became a novelty that you would see at shows. And that's where rodeos really took off and began, where these people that knew how to rope and wrestle steer and do all of these activities on farms would then do them for money and entertainment at shows.
Right. And my introduction to Black Cowboys was it was an Idris Elba film.
Yeah, Concrete Cowboy.
Concrete Cowboy, yeah. So I never knew that it was a thing only after seeing that film.
Yeah, so I'm in Philadelphia right now, which is where we'll be doing our next event. And that's where that movie takes place, is right in Philadelphia. It's based on real people that I've met.
Right. So Concrete Cowboys are a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's called the Fletcher
amazing.
Street Stables, and they're urban cowboys right in the middle of Philadelphia.
So how did your introduction to Black Cowboys occur? Like I read that you went to an event.
Yeah, I was in Portland, Oregon, and I met a filmmaker named Charles Perry. And I asked him what he was working on. He said he was working on a film about Black Cowboys. And I said, oh, like a Western? He said, no, a documentary. And I think at the moment I actually laughed at him because I was like, that's a weird documentary. Like, that's not a thing. And we kept talking, and he said, why don't you come with me to Oklahoma this summer and see it for yourself? And I ran home and bought my plane ticket and sat waiting. This was in March. I sat waiting for August to roll around, and I didn't want to Google it and look it up and spoil the surprise. But in my head, I just had all of these crazy ideas about what this thing would be, like people dancing on horses, or I had no idea what it would be like. I knew what Black culture was, and I knew what Western culture was. And I was trying to marry these two things in my head. But August rolled around, and I went to a little town in Oklahoma called Okmulgee, Oklahoma. It's about 4 hours away from where I grew up. And there were thousands of Black cowboys there, and they were dancing in the dirt with their boots, and there were smoked turkey legs, and I was drinking a strawberry pop and eating a smoked turkey leg in the other hand and trying to take photos of these people riding around on horses with their Jordans on and no shirt and gold chains, and women riding around the barrels with acrylic nails clutching the reins and their braids blowing behind them. And it was just like gospel and R&B music and hip hop all mixed together. And it was this perfect mixture of all of these elements of Black culture with the West. And it just felt like this isn't new to anybody here. This has been like this for generations. People have been getting down like this long before I was born. And I have the honor to be here. That first year that I was there, I was the only photographer. Nobody else was interested in this culture. This was 2015, and I felt like I had literally just walked into a magical world and been gifted this opportunity to shoot something new.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think this narrative has been totally ignored by the mainstream?
I don't know. I think I'm a positive person in general, and my thought tends to go, it was just an oversight. People didn't really consider it because they were focused on other things. You see what you want to see and you hear what you want to hear. And this was something that Black nor white folks really wanted to think much about because it was the opposite of any stereotype that anybody had about their own culture or other cultures. That's the best answer that I can come up with. The worst answer is that it was very intentional. It's malicious. The cowboy in America is this archetype of independence and grit and all of our noblest attributes. And to associate it with a Black man or a Black woman is to elevate a Black man or a Black woman to hero status. And that becomes a problem when you're trying to oppress a group of people. I like the first answer better, but that other one kind of lingers in the back of my head as a possible truth as well.
Yeah, because my introduction is always like John Wayne and Clint Eastwood and the cowboys going after the Indians. And
Exactly. And it's like, what if the Indians made the movies? What would they look like? So now we're in a position where Black folks have more charge of their narrative, and you're seeing a lot more stories and a lot more ownership of this world. And it's very powerful. And it's a point of pride for Black folks in the country to kind of see these images and hear these stories that are connected to them.
how has it personally impacted you? Is there like a before and after Ivan?
Absolutely. I mean, when I showed up to that first rodeo, I was wearing wingtips and chinos and a linen shirt and a baseball hat. And I couldn't have fit in less. I absolutely looked like I didn't belong there. But everybody was open and welcoming and eager to share their story and share a drink. And it was just so warm and inviting that I just walked through the door and it closed behind me, and I haven't left since. Now I typically walk around in a starched button down and jeans and a big belt buckle and a cowboy hat. So aesthetically, I'm walking around looking different most of the time. Also, I just have this confidence and this ownership of a part of my identity. Like I said, I grew up around it, but really didn't recognize it. But my grandma and my mom and my uncles, they all knew about Black Cowboy culture because they grew up on a hog farm. When they grew up planting fruit trees, and this was a big part of their lineage and a big part of their identity. It was just something that they really didn't pass down to me because they thought that rural agrarian culture equaled poverty. And they were like, we want you to be a city boy. We want you to have soft hands. My grandma would say, you can either use your brain or you can use your back. And I would prefer that you use your brain. And so I got into design and photography and advertising and marketing and all of these other things. But, it was there calling me. And when I found it, it just resonated and lit me up. Now I live on 3 acres of land in the middle of nowhere. And we're very much like moving toward being the country folks that we admire so much.
Yeah. And how did you get into photography?
So photography, again, was something that I just stumbled on. I was going on a trip to Istanbul, and I figured, this is my first time out of the country, really. And I figured, well, if I'm going to Istanbul, I might as well capture it and take some pictures. And I had a friend, Dan McDowell, who worked in electronics at an electronics store, and he had a brand new Canon Rebel. I don't even know if he had used it yet. And I went to his house and said, hey, let me borrow that camera. He showed me for about 5 minutes how to use it. He showed me what the aperture was and the ISO and the white balance and said something about a triangle. And I was like, give me the camera. I took it overseas. He's a very nice guy to let me borrow his camera and his lenses. But I took it overseas and just shot away. It was just free. And it was just like this vehicle to meet people in a foreign land and interface with people that I probably normally wouldn't have talked to. And I went to a Besiktas match and took pictures of fans at this football game. And I was walking through mosques and markets and just snapping away, taking pictures with reckless abandon. And I would say to this day, I haven't taken a photo as good as that first time that I really was exploring with the camera. It was a very magical stroke of beginner's luck. Like, there were just incredible photos that came out of that. And I had no clue what to do with them. And then I spent the next decade taking really bad photos. It caught up with me. And I was shooting weddings and trying to be a fashion photographer, and I just couldn't take a good photo to save my life. And I think I'm just now about, over 15 years in to being a photographer, able to produce good photos every once in a while.
Yeah. What's your style like before 8 seconds happened? What would you call yourself? Like a street photographer or a commercial photographer?
I was a commercial photographer for a while. I was a wedding photographer. And then I would shoot anything that anybody paid me to do. I mean, there was a a beer company that paid me to shoot like people dressed up like zombies in a real graveyard. And it's just, I was just taking photos of anything. So I don't think I had a particular style. I was just kind of a hired gun for a long time. And then I watched a documentary about a photographer named Bill Cunningham, who was a New York Times fashion photographer or street style photographer. And he said, if you really want to own the work, don't get paid for it. And so I stopped taking money for photography for like 5 years. I was just like, this isn't for sale. And that really freed me up to start to develop a style and really figure out what I was interested in. I would walk around in Portland, Oregon every day after work. I would walk 1.5 miles to work and then 1.5 miles home. It would take me like an hour to get home. And every day I would stop at the same spots in the city and just look at the light, wait for people to come by. I became very familiar with this loop that I walked around every single day. And sometimes light would bounce off of a big pink skyscraper and just land right in this walkway that I used to shoot at. And it would just make everything pink and vibrant. And it was just like this perfect, warm spotlight in this area. And I would just wait for something interesting to happen. And every once in a while, somebody interesting would come through there and I would take their picture. I would interface with people. I would go meet people that I thought were interesting and talk to them and take their photo, take a portrait of them. I would take like 20, 40 pictures every day. And I would go home and edit them real quick and just throw them on Instagram. And it just became like this daily diary of the city. And I would do the same things when I went on trips, when I went to Morocco or Mexico City or Iceland or anywhere that I went. I would just snap and take pictures every single day with no real goal. I didn't care if anybody liked them or not. I didn't have any intention of making a book. I didn't want to be famous or anything of the sort. It was just really a mindfulness exercise. It was this thing to like bring me completely into the present and to completely notice everything around me. And in doing that, like all of my anxiety like went away. And it was right in the middle of that I met Charles Perry and took those skills to this rodeo. And I shot it like I would shoot Portland, like I would shoot people on the street. And it was something new that nobody had really done before.
Yeah, and that impacted your work and that became your style.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the only way that I know how to shoot anymore. I had a couple of friends, once I had gotten established and had won some awards and gotten published in different places. And I had a couple of friends ask me one summer to shoot their wedding. They were like, you used to shoot weddings. Why don't you shoot my wedding? And I was like, absolutely, because I love shooting weddings. Like, you get invited to somebody's wedding that you wouldn't have gotten invited to otherwise. And it's always a blast and they feed you and you get to be around people dressed their best and have a great time. And so my friend asked me to shoot her wedding and I went and shot it street style. I shot it like a documentary and I gave her the pictures and she was like, Ivan, what is this? I wanted pretty photos. You got pictures of me like eating a taco and looking goofy and hunched over. And I'm like, I don't know. That's what you look like. She was very disappointed. And then I shot another wedding and they had the same reaction. Like, this is not what I expected. I wanted like beautiful, like editorial style photos. So as much as I want to, I don't shoot weddings anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. This whole idea of 8 seconds, how did that come to you?
So 8 seconds came about because I was shooting these rodeos without much of a goal, no intention. But I was traveling out of Portland like 2 or 3 times a month to go to different rodeos around the country. And it was very expensive, paying for flights and hotels and rental cars. And I was renting cameras, renting lenses, and just like going and shooting these rodeos. And my wife was kind of like, hey, you've spent tens of thousands of dollars on this. This was like 3 years later. It's 2018. She's like, what are you doing? What is the goal? And I was like, well, maybe I'll start an Instagram account and start to push these photos out into the world. And I started an account dedicated to my rodeo photography and I needed a name for it. And 8 seconds came to mind because that's how long you have to ride a bull or a bronco to get a score. So you have to stay on the bull or the bronco for 8 seconds. You have to have one hand in the air and one hand on the rope tied around the bull. And if you fall off before 8 seconds, you get no score and you get no money. If you stay on for 8 seconds, you have the chance of winning some money. You have some chance of winning all of the money if nobody else stays on that long. It's an incredibly hard thing to do. It's hard on your body. It is in place to protect the animals because they used to ride the animals until the animal fell down. And they said after 8 seconds, the animal gets so stressed and fatigued that there's no point in being on it anymore. So it's not only the limit that you get a score, it's the limit that you have to get off. You can't stay on much longer than 8 seconds. And I just thought the stakes in that interval of time couldn't be higher. You could win some money or you could lose your life. You can be wildly successful or you can slink back home poor. And I just thought the stakes and the gravity of 8 seconds was an appropriate name for what I had seen and what I experienced at these rodeos.
And how has the impact been? Because probably single-handedly brought this narrative into people's consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a humble guy. In Kansas, we don't believe in tooting our own horn or bragging about what we've done. That's not something that I'm great at. I wish I was better at it, to be honest. The truth of the matter is that I know that it's made an impact on people. I know that there wasn't much of this work before I came along. Ron Tarver is a photographer who had shot at that first rodeo that I've been to back in the early 90s. So I contacted him as soon as I found out about his work and was like, hey, you were doing this at least 25 years before I started. And his photos are amazing. They're absolutely beautiful. And I wrote him and he said, yeah, I went and shot the rodeo for a few years and nobody cared. I couldn't get them published anywhere. So he was like, good for you. It's like you've come upon this at the right time. And it's like none of this work existed. I started pushing the photos out there. Other people were like, I had no idea that this was a thing either. I had no idea that this was a part of Black culture either. And we were just like sort of opening people's eyes. And then the movies started to come out. And there was The Harder They Fall that was produced by Jay-Z with Idris Elba is in that movie too. And The Concrete Cowboy. And then you started to see it in music like Lil Nas X and Old Town Road. And then Beyonce's album came out. And now there's a show about a cowboy in the 1800s called Bass Reeves that's on TV. And it's just proliferated culture in America in a way that I can't 100% take credit for, but that I'm very proud to be a part of.
And talking about your art, you've written that unfiltered power that's what comes through your photography. What do you say to that?
It is. I don't spend a lot of time posing or composing my photos. I just go into spaces where people are doing interesting things and get in their way. I think one thing that I really try to do when I go onto ranches and I go to rodeos, these folks are very in tune with the environment and they're very in tune with their animals. The things that they do on horseback are phenomenal and they do it without any communication. So to do this, they have to be very aware and very in sync with their animal. They have to know what it's about to do, and they have to be able to communicate what they want it to do silently. And not only are they aware of the animals, but they're aware of you. And if you're coming in and you're nervous, or you're coming in and you have an agenda, these cowboys pick up on that right away. They can sniff you out real quick. So I spend a lot of time before I go on a shoot making sure that I am spiritually in a great place and making sure that the energy that I'm putting out there is very curious and calm and creative. And when I do that, I'm able to just like step into people's path and take beautiful photos where they're at. And I've found that they're not apprehensive because you can pick that up on the camera. They're not scared of me. They're not uncomfortable. They're as curious about me as I am about them, and I pick that up in the frame. When you're at a rodeo, there's all kinds of interesting things happening. There's people riding animals. There's people falling off of animals. There's people doing amazing things with their bodies. But I tend to point my camera in the opposite direction of that and take pictures of people getting ready, people sitting on the bed of their trucks, people putting on their shirt, buttoning up the last button, folks having a beer and sharing a laugh. Like those moments in between the glory of the rodeo, I think are far more powerful and far more intense. And I think they really resonate with more people.
One thing I will say when I look at those images is I can feel myself there, and that's the hallmark for an amazing image, I think, that you feel so close to them and you're almost there witnessing that happening right now. That's the feeling I get.
Thank you. I think that's a huge compliment. And I really appreciate that because that's my intent, is to draw people into these spaces that they've never been. I had a photographer tell me, don't necessarily focus on the rodeo. Don't necessarily focus on the cowboy world, because then when you're trying to sell the photos or you're trying to get them out into the world, people will say, I don't relate to cowboy. I don't know what that is. Or I don't like rodeo. I think it's animal cruelty, or I think it's disgusting or uninteresting, which is way worse. Boring is the worst thing that you can do. But focus on the humanity, because everybody relates to joy in the world. Everybody relates to hard work in the world. And if you really want your work to go far, focus on the moments that resonate within every human being on the planet. And that's really what I try to do. A moment where a father is interacting with his son. The moment where someone is fixing their makeup in the rearview mirror of a truck, or adjusting their hat just a little bit to look their best, or tying a rope with their old weathered hands. All of those things have universal appeal. And that's absolutely the direction that I've taken my work.
Yeah, I mean, it feels more authentic and not staged.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can go in there and a part of me, like the old guy that wanted to be a fashion photographer, wants to go in with a big strobe and a large format camera and a backdrop and like really take high concept photos. Like I think that's something that like tickles the back of my neck. But then the reality is I don't know how to shoot like that. That's not what I do. And that's not what I do best. And those photos would be weird and they would make people uncomfortable. And somebody else can come in and shoot that way better than I ever can. So I really try to not only stay authentic to myself, but create an authentic interaction between me and the subject matter that I'm shooting in these spaces.
Yeah, and so from a gear perspective, is it just like a minimal kind of gear? Like, what's your setup like?
I either shoot with a Fuji XE1. It's not even a professional camera. It's just like, it's almost a point and shoot, though you can exchange the lens on it. But the files are pretty small, and I get in a little bit of trouble when I try to print them because they're really not high enough resolution to get a really good quality print. But I shoot with it a lot, and I'll blow the photos up huge, and I don't care. I just get it out there because the camera's just got vibes, and I've been shooting with it for over a decade, and I just love it. I just absolutely love it. It just fits in the palm of my hand. I can shoot with it while I'm driving a car, and it's small, so it's not intimidating. Like when you bring out your huge gear and you point it at somebody, they're like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this. So I think the XE1 is a nice camera for walking around and interfacing with people. I did all of my street photography with it, and so it's something that I'm very familiar with. Although it's starting to get busted pixels on it, so I have to do a lot of editing afterward to get all the white, green, and blue spots out of my photos. But my other go-to camera is a medium format Fuji. I shoot with a Fuji GFX 102 and a 40 to 100 zoom lens on it. But again, that thing is enormous and slow, and it can be a little bit intimidating. And when you're walking around at a rodeo for 12 hours, it can get heavy. So I like the XE1, and then I've got a 32 millimeter Zeiss lens on it. And it's just chef's kiss. It's every photo that camera takes is beautiful. And it really performs super well at night as well, because I think the lens is a 1.4. So it just does incredible things. And most of the rodeos are at night, and the medium format just doesn't do great in low light. So, or the lens doesn't, because it's a f4. So once there's action and things are moving and it's dark and it's just lit by the stadium lights, I pretty much stick with the XE1 because it just crushes it.
Shooting at the rodeo, I mean, it's dusty and it's fast and all kinds of lights is happening. What are the challenges you face while shooting there?
The biggest thing is like trying to stay out of the way. As I get older, I'm not as fast as I used to be. I used to stand in the middle of the arena and there's people riding bulls, and as soon as they get off, the bull is just looking for somebody to take revenge on because it's mad. And if you're standing there with a giant camera and looking goofy, it's going to come right at you. And I used to be fast enough to get out of the way and jump over the fence, but I'm not anymore. So that's one thing, is the danger factor is fast moving horses, rocks flying at your face, bulls coming at you, kicking, gates swinging open. I've gotten a black eye from a gate swinging open. I've kept my hand jumping over the top of a gate. I've luckily never been hit by a bull, but I've gotten pretty close. Just the activity and the movement of the rodeo is the biggest challenge. Beyond that, I'm shooting Black culture at night. We're dark, and catching focus with a Black person at night is hard. It is a challenge. So you're searching for light. You're searching for a highlight of the stadium lights bouncing off of a sweaty spot of skin, or a touch of white on someone's collar, or the lightness of a rope that someone's holding. You're just looking for anything that has contrast to focus on. Otherwise, it's pretty tricky and it's pretty difficult. And I'm not a great manual focuser, so I try to rely on the automatic focus. But when it's like dark on dark, you got to kind of take over and do your best. Other challenges are capturing motion. In some of these events, someone's riding a horse 40 to 50 miles an hour. It's incredibly fast. It's tough to freeze the action in camera. The cover of my book is a photo of two people in a horse race, and it is blurry as all get out. It is an incredibly blurry photo, but I'm in the arena. I'm very close, and you can feel the energy of the shot, is why I picked it for the cover. But every time I look at it, I'm like, if I just was better at focus, I could have really, really froze that in space and it would have been a perfect photo. But then I also know if it was a perfect photo, it wouldn't be as interesting, because I think the blur kind of shows that I'm just shooting on the fly. I'm just sticking and moving, and I'm a little bit afraid when I shoot these things. So it's remarkably hard. I've had a lot of photographers want to come and shoot I do a rodeo now, and I've had a lot of photographers want to come and shoot it, and I'll let them come. And at the end, they're like, this is hard. And I'm like, yeah, you got to get your reps in. You can't just like kind of come in and do this on day one. It's maybe one of the most technical types of photography that you can do.
I really love that motion blur on that photograph.
Thank you. I do too. Yeah, I think it's so cool. It's a little bit of mystery. It's great energy. It's beautiful storytelling. It's a photo that I would have disregarded 5 years ago even. I would have just like, when I was culling, I would have gone through it and been like, no, get it out of here. But now I'm able to look at a photo that's not perfect and really appreciate it and love it.
So that's a standout image that portrays a Black cowboy or a Black rodeo. Of all the images that you shot, which one would it be?
There's a photo of a cowgirl who at the time was 11. Now she's 16. This was like during COVID. And I went down to Texas and visited her and her mom. And we just hung out for a couple of days. And we were walking through this field, and there were big ominous storm clouds over the top of us. And she said she was on her horse, And she said, Mr. Ivan, it's about to rain. And I said, okay, well, how much time do you think I have? She would say, oh, about 6-7 minutes. And I was like, okay. And she knew because, like I said, they're in tune with the environment and they're in tune with their animals. And they know when it's going to rain. They can tell completely. And so I said, well, let's get the shot before it starts dumping rain because I don't want to be out here with my camera. I'm going to sit on the ground and I want you to ride your horse as close to me as you possibly can. And she said, okay. I sat on the ground with my camera pointing up and she rode within about a couple of inches of me. She just rode her horse. I could feel the breeze of the horse go by me. I was pretty afraid. I pointed my camera up and shot. And I got a photo of her in a full gallop and her braids are blowing back and her hat is flipped up and she's laser focused looking straight forward because she doesn't want to hit me with this horse. And then there's just these big billowy storm clouds behind her. And I just love that photo because it, number one, was technically tough to get. And compositionally, it's very interesting. But I also love it because of the skill and the dedication that this young woman has to her craft. And she's the next generation of this. My work really focuses on youth in this world because I think it's very easy to say that Black Cowboys are a thing of the past or this is something that's behind us. I think it challenges people to say, no, this is very now. And the youth of this country are taking up the reins and driving this culture forward and are really relevant. So that's the photo that I love the most. It was almost the cover of the book, but I love that horse racing photo a little bit more.
Amazing. So sort of bookend the conversation. I want to focus on your 8-second rodeo project that you're doing all over the country right now. And pretty much the world is at crossroads, I guess. Like which path will it take? How do you think with all that's happening around you, where does 8-second, what is its place and what are your plans for it?
I think, it's a very interesting idea and one that I look at a lot. I don't watch the news. It's really not part of my day. I stay away from the news. I think it's poison for my spirit, but it leaks through. I find out what's going on through conversations with people. Yesterday, my sister was just screaming at me about what's going on in our country. And I just had to cut her off and go like, hey, I don't consume that. So don't bring that to my attention. And it's not a matter of like sticking my head in the sand and ignoring things. It's just a matter of, number one, making sure that I have a free and creative spirit, but also like am able to focus on the things that really matter in my immediate life and that I have impact over. So 3 years ago, I decided to do my own rodeo, which was crazy because I had never thrown a birthday party. And all of a sudden I'm doing an event for 2,000 people and I had to get dirt and fencing and market the event and sell it and recruit cowboys to come. And we threw the first black rodeo in Portland, Oregon. We did it again the next year for 7,000 people. The next year we did it for 8,000 people. And now we're doing it in 2 cities. Next year, we're going to do it in a lot more cities. This year, we're doing it in Portland and Philadelphia. And I really view the rodeo as an absolute moment of joy. It's a great payday for the athletes, but they're expressing themselves as freely and as openly as they possibly can. And the crowd is having a moment of absolute joy. Most of our crowd have never been to a rodeo. They've never seen these type of events, and they're just coming out of their skin. They're leaping, they're dancing, they're having the most fun they've ever had in their life. And you would think, wow, in these trying times, the environment's going crazy and tyranny is on the rise and we've got insane people in office, and who could go into a building and just have a great time when things are so trying? But I really do believe that joy is an act of rebellion. I really do believe that joy is an act of defiance, and it's the most powerful thing that you can do to say to those that want to control us or those that want to destroy our spirits or destroy our environment. No, we're going to get together. We're going to come together as a community, and we're going to absolutely celebrate something that we're collectively excited about. And I view the rodeo as the resistance in this country, 100%.
Amazing. I think on that note, I want to close this conversation. But before we go, I want to know, like, how can people get your book and get more information on your 8 Seconds Rodeo?
Yeah, just go to Instagram and look us up. It's at EIGHTSECS. You can find everything that we've got going on there. It's a lot of stuff, but we keep moving and we keep coming up with new ways to support the culture and to express ourselves in the most positive and creative way.
Great. And Ivan, I can't wait to see what's coming next from your stables.
Yeah, thank you so much. I sure do appreciate it. This was a lot of fun talking to you.
Thanks for coming on the show, Ivan. It was an amazing window into a subculture that I have only read about. Do give Ivan some love on Instagram. His handle is 8sex, which is EIGHTSECS. If you've reached so far, then smash that like button and give me some feedback on Spotify or Substack or wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. Before we finish, I want to thank Opopo Studios for sponsoring this episode. If you're looking for a co-working space, a photo studio that comes with lights and backdrops for shooting portraits and headshots, and if you're an entrepreneur or a photographer in the south of Auckland, then Opopo Studios is the space for you. They are centrally located just off the motorway in Manurewa. So don't forget to check them out. They are at opopostudios.nz. That's all I have for you in this episode. Catch you later in the next. Till then, stay safe and keep clicking. This is Rajeev signing off.